Welcome to the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blain. I interview leaders, experts and business professionals from around the world who are bringing leadership principles and know-how into the digitally driven 21st century workplace, with focus firmly on the how-to rather than the what. Each episode is in aid of a charity chosen by my guests, and since 2020, we've made donations to over 80 global and local causes. Welcome to this episode of the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blain, and my guest, Marika Messager. She is the CEO and founder of the Conscious Leadership organisation, which helps leaders to stay sharp, relevant, confident, and have great presence in their business. This is about achieving full leadership consciousness, according to Marika, and we'll be discussing this in more detail. What conscious leadership is, why it's important, and how leaders can best cultivate this discipline, and the all-important benefits of doing so. We also considered the tips and watch-outs such as leadership impact on workplace culture, both positively and negatively, the impact of toxic leadership, the awareness of differences within our teams and our organisations, be that gender, be that generation, be that any diversity lens, and the potential of our teams across the organisation at all levels. Let's hear more. Thanks very much for joining me, Marika. Please give us an idea of yourself, your career, and maybe tell us something about you that not many people know.
Ooh. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for having me with you. So I'm Marika Messager. I am a consciousness researcher, a pioneer in conscious leadership. I founded my company, consciousleadership.org, 10 years ago. And so what I do is that I research and I teach the technology of consciousness and how we apply that to business and organizations, so that we use business as a force for good and good as a force for business. So the goal really is to look at individuals and organizations from a systemic approach and really look at the unhealthy behaviors that we display as individuals and also in our organizations and our system, and have some tools and be equipped in order to transform those unhealthy behaviors into healthy ones for ourselves, our, family, social circles, and of course, career.
Right, and that resonates hugely with the modern workplace, but also modern living. So I'm not going to let you get away with this. What is something about yourself that not many people would know, Marika?
Oh my God. What can I say? I've been to Burning Man 5 times.
That is impressive, being a music fan myself. Did you go this year when it was all the mud and got rained off?
No, the first year I went was 2009, so it's a long time ago. And the last time I went was probably 10 years ago. But yeah, this year was a bit of a transformative experience, more than usual, I guess.
Yes, so we've heard, and so I saw from the pictures. So yeah, maybe I'll be looking at the weather forecast for that in the years to come. Anyway, let's get back to the core here. Could you, though, before we start, explain what conscious leadership is, why it's important, and how leaders can best cultivate this discipline?
Sure. So conscious leadership is 3 types of leadership: self-leadership, thought leadership, and team leadership. And so self-leadership is the ability to lead the self. And by that, I mean the ability to be self-aware, to understand how you function as a human being, what are your triggers, what are your patterns. And it's also a place of knowing what you want, knowing why you want it, and having an idea on how you're going to go after it. Thought leadership is about something that matters to you, right? So a thought leader is somebody who is going to inspire others to go towards somewhere, right? A vision, a mission. So there is an element of mastery in thought leadership, of mastery of an art or understanding of a cause. But there is also the ability to take people with you to somewhere better. And finally, we have team leadership, which is about really, managing your teams in order to execute the vision. And so that, of course, requires communication, open communication, conscious communication, but also collaboration, so that, and also processes and practices, so that actually we execute in the best way possible. And with these three types of leadership, self-leadership is, for me, you don't need a title to be a leader, right? It's really about leading yourself and your life. And self-leadership is something that we all would like to master, really. And that sadly is not very much taught, neither at school or at university. Thought leadership is about having a purpose, which I think is something that we all aspire to actually feel driven and passionate about what we do and why we wake up in the morning. And also the feeling of belonging and fulfillment that you have when you work towards something that's greater than you. And then team leadership. Yes, you have to manage people in order to practice team leadership, but it's really about connecting with others and learning how to navigate difficult conversations in a way that, connects rather than separates. So it's tools actually to function with one another. And obviously in the team leadership aspect, there is also an element of showing others how to lead yourself. So you need a big dose of self-leadership in order to manage and lead your team well.
Yes, I like that. Tools to function well as ourselves and with others, whether that's at that greater purpose level or those people within our businesses. Why do modern leaders need to take notice of this and cultivate that discipline?
Yeah. Well, we live in a world that's defined as VUCA, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So we really need to do a good reality check on ourselves, on our organizations, on our systems, and assess what is working and what is not working. And, at the organizational level, if we want to look at that place, there are some undeniable truths. We have 80% of employees who are disengaged. We have 70% of knowledge workers who have experienced a burnout over the last 12 months. We have, for the first time, 5 generations all working together in the same organizational world, right? So there are some critical challenges that not only show that the old system of leadership is failing us, but also that we need a new one. And some people are daring to actually innovate in that field of leadership and are showing results. So it's not just a fantasy. It actually is something that has been demonstrated to have results. We're still in the early stage, and it's the bridge that we walk as we build it. But there is another way, and it's really asking us to assess and see that, yes, there is hybrid work, there is how to do to successfully do your inclusion, how to work with all these generational gaps. There are so many things that we need to find ways to address in order to create new ways of working.
Yes, and of course that's going to continue to change, isn't it, with the speed of transformation in our organizations. And I like the fact that you referred to the VUCA world that we live in, and you added hybrid. Maybe it should be VUCAD now, with that distributed element at the end, because it is, these are different challenges. But I guess there is also a very human challenge, because many of those tuning into this will say, you know what, this makes so much sense. I want to be a leader like this. I want to be a leader who is a force for good, as well as being conscious about my business, myself, my team, all of those kind of things. But maybe in the same organization or other leaders, maybe at peer level, who are a little bit old school, let's say. So how do conscious leaders deal with and try to work with toxic leadership that happens within their organization and work to change it?
Yeah, and that's a fantastic question, because it's clearly a challenge. toxicity is there. It's our system is toxic, right? So we really need each and every one of us to educate ourselves on what is toxicity. And we have to be grateful to social media for that, because you can learn a lot on Instagram or YouTube about that, right? But so educate oneself on what is an unhealthy behavior. What is it that is not tolerable? And really start to understand, why is it that I am tolerating this if it's not tolerable? What is it that I'm not educated on? And and really start to question the behaviors in general, right? Even in the dating field, there is this ghosting thing, right? And so ghosting has become normalized because it's done by everyone, but it's not respectful. So, we need to start to look at those behaviors that we have and change those within ourselves that are not healthy, and stop tolerating those in others that are not healthy neither. So when you are in that situation in a leadership position, I really, invite all our clients to address everything at the level of the symptoms first. And the symptoms are the behaviors, right? And you're not telling anyone, oh, you're whatever, you're arrogant, or you're a narcissist, or you're toxic. You're just saying, this way, this pattern of communicating is not healthy. This is a healthy way. Are you willing to engage in a healthy way, right? And in a way, when you do that, you neutralize the toxicity, because you're calling it out in a way that is neutral. You need to have emotional neutrality in order to do those things, right? You can't allow yourself to be emotionally triggered, which is what toxicity does to you. So there is a gift of, emotional mastery in that, right? And so you call it, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, no, the gift of emotional mastery. I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Because we want our leaders to, on one level, be a little bit more emotional, in touch with the humanity, but also we need that control, don't we?
Exactly. Yeah. And I truly believe that actually the more we can control, the more we can master our emotions. And mastering our emotions doesn't mean numbing them. It means actually being able to feel them and being equipped to feel them. And so once you're able to do that, you are really practicing your heart muscle, and that allows for more compassion and understanding. So this is how it works, right? So going back to toxicity, so it's really you have to call it out, and you have to give people choices of what is healthy and what is not healthy. And then you see further who they are and how they respond. And if they keep repeating in conscious patterns of toxicity, then you've got a bigger problem, which is, you can't really function with that person. You can't work with that person, because there is no possibility to collaborate and to create win-win solutions. Those people are there to win if somebody loses.
Yes, exactly. And of course, it occurs to me that the more toxic that is, and the more of a multiplier it becomes, then that becomes a very important cultural element, because it can be underpinned by culture, bad culture or good culture. So consciousness, not just across leaders then, but across all of the organization, is important. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Actually, we are launching a product that is for all employees within an organization. That's called the Conscious Library. And it's really from that place of experience and understanding of 10 years of, mentoring leaders and organizations, where I see that actually we can normalize toxicity, right? We can neutralize toxicity, sorry. And so the culture of an organization is the best tool for that, right? So if we can create a culture that is healthy, that role models and values healthy behaviors, then we have a huge safety net that is a protection against unhealthy behaviors and toxicity, right? So I've been really researching on how to change cultures and what's the system to address the system. And what I've observed is that, I mean, in organizations these days at the C levels, people are very willing to have one-on-one coaching, and it's paid by the organization most of the time, and it's expensive, right? And then for the middle management, there is not really anything offered. I mean, they don't want to pay the one-on-one coaching, and they don't, you know, so there is a program here and there, but there is no consistency in the pedagogy. And then for the rest of the employees, there is maybe a yoga class every month, right? But what I've observed is that actually at every level of an organization, some people want to grow, and some people want to actually lead themselves toward their highest potential. And if we can give those people the tools to do so, I mean, this is fantastic in a culture, because it creates people who have the ability to work in a place where your company supports your growth, where it's emulated, where you can practice with colleagues and have the same language and have the same systems and experiment the benefits of that. And then when the more and more people do that and see that, the more and more ambassadors you have. And this is how you actually change a culture. Of course, the leader needs to embody the culture.
Yes, that's right. It is modeling those behaviors at all levels, isn't it? And it does occur to me while you're speaking there, if we start getting that right, then you're also pulling a very big lever at the moment in the organizations, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, in a more intentional way. Would that be fair?
Yeah, definitely, because you know, I think it's very important to define these words, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion. What do they mean, and how do we achieve them? And, you know, diversity would only mean like ticking boxes, right? We have a bit of everything, and so we're diverse. But, you know, if we don't create a culture of inclusion where actually people, you know, are free and safe to be who they are and to be authentic and to come with their background and to have the tools to bring it in a way that is received by others, and to know actually how to understand other people so that your language is going to be inclusive of everyone. I mean, there is a lot to learn to actually succeed with inclusion. And so again, we need to equip those organizations, because if diversity goes wrong, I mean, it can really go wrong, right? So it's not something light to introduce. It's really something that needs to be thought through. And you know, there is an immense opportunity in that, because inclusion done right is actually a conscious culture. It's a culture where people are safe to be themselves, where there is open lines of communication, but also the tools to know how to communicate. You know, some systems, some practices that, you know, provide all of that. So that means what? That means collaboration. That means, you know, compassion. That means co-creation, and that means purpose, and, you know, and therefore it means performance and success.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? And as you've been talking, the point that you make about the culture becomes the underpinning of everything, that conscious culture, let's call it, from that point of view. So as you were talking then, I put in a couple of other models, let's call them, or ideas that are very prevalent in the workplace at the moment. Psychological safety, because it is enabling this. The growth mindset, that continual learning and being able to try new things with that psychological safety as well. And the third pillar strikes me is this: conscious leadership at all levels.
Ooh.
That, yeah, oh, you like that? Oh, that resonated with the expert, Marika. Okay, great. So you that you agree then? I'm not misreading that.
No, of course not. And you know, I'll give you an example. I was doing so I worked with an organization a few years back, and they were I mean, they are a private equity firm, and you know, I'm still working with the leaders there. But you know, they asked me to come in and assess the, you know, the culture and the communication. So I worked with them on that for like 2-3 years. And one day I did a workshop for the whole company. So it was like 55 people, but coming from, you know, Egypt, Hong Kong, Geneva, London, so quite, you know, international and diverse. And the workshop was around how to navigate difficult conversation. And so that involved understanding yourself in conflict. And so I did this whole workshop for like 2-3 hours. And at the end, there was a guy who was in his 50s, and he was the receptionist in Switzerland. And he came to see me, and he was like, Marika, I loved it. I didn't understand all of, you know, some bits I didn't understand, but I mean, it's fascinating. I understood so many things. And I was like, wow, you know, it really means that at every level, you know, some people want that, you know, they want that ability to grow. And this growth mindset is not in everyone. We can cultivate it, but some people have it more than others. So, I mean, what's the gift for an organization to actually be able to identify the people who have this growth mindset and to nurture them and nourish them so that they actually evolve? I mean, I know me as a manager and a leader and an entrepreneur. I mean, people who I know I can grow with and I can grow them because I have the tools. It's fantastic.
Yes, it is. Having experienced that myself, it's mutually beneficial actually and energizing, isn't it? When you get that. So you've just given us one example there. Are there any conscious organizations or leaders that you can point to out there? You don't need to name names, but that embody the spirit of what you're saying and are getting this right. And if they are, and if you can, what are the benefits that they're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, there are actually more than we think. And there are some that have been exploring that for many years. I mean, obviously, there are some big names in the US and you know, but the big corporations, it's always difficult to read because there is, you know, we know that there are some hidden agendas and conflict of interest, and we know that we don't know everything and anything. So we're kind of, okay, they're doing this, but there is always a level of skepticism, right? Which, you know, it's the reality. But I want to underline some initiatives that I've seen. And this was, again, a long time ago. I was in Washington at something that's called the Mindful Leadership Summit, something like that. And there was the CEO of Enpro who was on stage. And so Enpro is a big organization in the States, and they produce steel products, right? So it's quite industrial. And it's listed on the stock exchange. So they have a board, they have shareholders, stakeholders, you know, they have to do some reports, some board meetings. And the CEO was there. And, you know, he really, first he played a little video of people from his company. And so, you know, it's like it's workers, they have a helmet, and, you know, they are, and they were all saying, I love my company. I know they take care of me. I know that, you know, if I have a problem, they will be there for me. And I'm very happy to go to work every day. And, you know, I want to give it my best. And it was really fascinating, you know, and the CEO, he really shared that he really decided when he took his position that he would actually lead as a conscious leader and, you know, have an organization that is people and profit. I don't remember if the planet pillar at the time was strong or not, but, you know, it was like, we are going to make decisions based on people and profit at the similar level. And so it means that we're going to have to make some decisions sometimes that are against profit because they respect people. And he really shared that, and how he was able to, you know, have a board that was supporting, but still, you know, having to face the financial markets and all of that. But he implemented some practices, he implemented some systems, and he really kind of managed to do that transformation in a company that you would assume is hard to change because it's a big one, right? So I want to share that because, and you know, one of the things is that before every meeting that was longer than 45 minutes, they were doing a 2-minute meditation. And so, you know, thinking about those things, and I think more and more, you know, these days, I reflect a lot myself on the burnout culture, right? You shared yourself that the pace of everything has never been that paced, right? It's like really, really fast. And you know, I have a lot of conversations with leaders and organizations where, and I know myself, like I am so equipped that I can dance with my limits very well. My resilience is very high, right? But is that sustainable? And so we're having conversations with organizations around burnout culture, and, you know, what is it? And how do we create a culture that actually is more supportive and, you know, kind of enabling more resilience within the culture already, you know? So there are loads of conversations to have around creating, you know, a better way to work together.
Yes, there are, but it sounds like even in a very structured, systemic organization like manufacturing and plants and steelworks and so on, change can be made. Did that CEO talk about any of the tangible benefits that he could capture, if you like?
So I can't remember because it was a long time ago, but there are some clear data these days, which is the beauty of the age we live in, right? But so there has been some data saying that the ego is costing between 6 to 12% of the revenue of an organization, right? And it's the invisible cost in your P&L. So there are loads. I mean, it's also like the cost of an unengaged employee or the cost of, a high turnover. Like, if you lose someone, I think it's costing you like 2 years of his own salary to replace the person, right? Or his or her own salary. So it's like all those hidden costs that actually, when we start to look at them, we really have a leverage to bring them down. So there are some tangible, matrix to that. Even hybrid work. I mean, I was just in Paris some time ago and having conversation with a client, and it was like, okay, so now people are all working from home on Friday, but they're not really working. It's a day off, and talking about one person who said, oh, I'm moving house, so I'm working from home. I was like, no, it's a day off, so if we can create a culture where actually those things are not happening, again, how much more performance and success and profit are we going to create?
Exactly right. And what a great question to ask. So I'm going to put that straight back to you and say, okay, for those people who for these messages are resonating particularly, what are the 4 or 5 tips that you could provide to build conscious leadership, build conscious organizations and cultures?
Oof. So it's something that needs to be built, right? So there are different steps. I would say the first step is to really address the leadership team, right? And check with your leadership team or with you as a leader, how much of a conscious leaders are we, right? So in other words, questioning your behaviors and starting to be like, what is it that I could do better? Where is it that I could be better? Where is it that I'm not really proud of how I respond to challenges and opportunities? So what is it that I need to work on myself, right? So I would encourage the leaders to start to look at their own self-leadership and how they can improve themselves, right? And start to do that work and start to have that conversation. It needs to be also an open conversation, right? Of, okay, if we start to, within ourselves and within our organization, to decide to consciously commit to actually bettering ourselves and our culture, we need to start to look at it, right? So it's doing an assessment, doing a diagnosis, right? So you can, there are some tools, there are some, assessments that you can use, but so that you get a clear picture of where you are. And then, again, we work with every level and every dimension. So, is it something that is global? Is it something that is more at the middle management? If you want to transform the culture, are we ready to bring something to all employees and to embody that so that we can move that to the next level? So there are loads of questions to ask the self. And because it's not a quick fix. It's a journey, right? It's a journey of actually bettering yourself, and it doesn't really stop.
It doesn't, and there are, as you're talking there are a lot of questions for organizations and leaders to ask first about where they are now, where they need to be, where they're willing to be, I suppose, to come back to the point that we've talked about. And then there feels like there's a lot of planning to do as well. And this highlights to me the importance of implementing. If you're doing all of that and then you're committed to implement it, you have to get that right, because it can be a great benefit, but it can be, I assume, rather damaging if you get that wrong.
Yeah, and also we don't want to, waste people's times and energy and money. So we want to make sure that, the work is going to, because for me, I have no doubts that, if the people engage with the work, the results are there, right? But it's really, how do we get people to engage with it is the question. And for that, we need to create and enable an environment that is going to support the engagement of employees and managers and leaders in that process of bettering the self and of, you know, having that growth mindset, as you shared, right? So there is a lot of thinking that goes into creating that safe container that is going to enable the growth and therefore inspire people to grow.
Yes, inspire them. Exactly right. Engage them in that and inspire them. Marika, I can't thank you enough. Such important points coming out of this for organizations and leaders, but for everyone, of course. So for those tuning in, how do they find out more and keep the conversation going with you?
Yeah, with pleasure. So you can find everything about us on the website, consciousleadership.org. There is actually a lot of content, information, and valuable tools there that are completely complementary. So, you know, if you want to know more, there is really a lot there. You can also connect with me on social media at Marika Messager on LinkedIn or Instagram. Same here, we share a lot. We love people who engage with us. So do not hesitate. You know, we are more than anything. We're like a movement and a community of people who are committed to that work.
Great. Well, Marika Messager, merci beaucoup et à bientôt.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rethink Leadership podcast with me, Jeremy Blain. Please like, comment, and support us on your favourite platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch as well as listen to each episode.